Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome. For those of you who are here in person joining us, we appreciate you being here. For those who are not here with us today, this event is being recorded, so it will be available on the town's local channel, Cable Access Channel 9, as well as the YouTube channel. So for those people who can't be here, they can see that then. I wanted to thank the Newburyport Daily News. Well, first, I'm Cindy. I'm the Council on Aging Director. Hi. I wanted to thank Dave Rogers, editor of the Newburyport Daily News and the paper, for co-sponsoring this event with us. Thank you to our candidates, Patrick Heffernan, Dana Packer, who are running for the single select board seat that is available this year. That is what this forum is about. A couple of housekeeping items, if everyone could just silence their cell phones, just so there's no interruption of the candidates when they're talking. And restrooms are available right outside in the hallway if you need to. And I will turn it over to Dave.
Great. So, hi everyone. Welcome to today's Newbury Candidates Forum, co-sponsored by the Daily News and Newburyport and the Newbury Council of Aging. We're here in the town offices on Kent Way. My name is Dave Rogers, as you heard, editor of the Daily News, and it's my honor to be here today. The goal of this forum is to give local residents more insight into the candidates for select board. There's incumbent Dana Packer and challenger Patrick Heffernan, and this is before heading to the polls on May 13th. I don't need to say this, but I hope you don't, please hold your applause till the end of the hour so we're not wasting time. The format is pretty simple. It's candidates will have a minute each for opening statements and another minute for closing statements. In between, I'll ask questions submitted by readers or crafted by me. Some of the questions will be directed towards individuals and some towards both of them. Candidates will have 90 seconds to respond. I may ask follow-up questions to keep a conversation going should I deem fit. And the candidates will have 60 seconds to respond to my follow-ups. And if they're up for it, candidates can ask their opponent a question or two. We'll see how we have time for that. And in that case, candidates will have a minute to respond. And if they start getting into discussion, I may interject with a question of my own while they're discussing it. So I'm trying to keep this as flowing as possible. And Cindy from the Council of Aging is handling the timing, and she and I will hope that the candidates respect the timer.
So just to interrupt you for that, the timer is obviously up here on the screen, but you will also hear that when your time is up. Okay?
I like that.
Everyone ready? All right, this is just a general question.
Do you want to start with opening statements?
Oh, shit, I am so hitting it fast. Go for it. Dan, you go first.
Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Dana Packer. I have been a select board member for 3 years now, and I'm up for re-election. My purpose and objective is to bring robust deliberation and debate to the table. I offer my support to every citizen of Newbury. I have had to learn to be a good listener. In listening to the topics at hand, I try to interject myself as a citizen with inquiries. As a board member of the Eastern Essex District Department of Veteran Services, my passion is supporting our veterans. I am thankful for the support that our community has given these warriors. Our town has, in the past, has shown their gratitude towards our veterans by approving a reduction in our disabled veterans' property taxes. This year, we have tied that to the state-level HERO Act, which also includes a cost of living increase. Our veterans and myself want to say thank you for your support.
Patrick?
Excellent, thanks. Thank you, Cindy, thank you, Dave. Thank you, everybody, for showing up here. I was thinking I was gonna talk for 3 minutes, so I'm gonna cut this down really fast. I'm running for select board because I've been on the finance committee for a couple years. I was an alternate on the planning board, I was on the rec committee. My wife served for 7 years as a school committee member. We're very invested in this town, we volunteered a ton of our time. We're really proud to live here. We're really proud of Newbury Elementary. We're really proud of Triton. Our kids all went through Newbury and Triton. And I believe that what we've got coming for this town are some really hard decisions, some really tough budget times coming ahead. And I think we need a select board that works for solutions, that works for consensus, that by the time we get to a vote, we all agree on what the solution is going to be. I was a career diplomat for 13 years. I understand how to build a team. I understand how to work together. I understand how to build consensus. And so between the schools and trying to get this town in the right place going forward with the big challenges we have ahead, that's why I want to be on the select board. I did it in under 4 minutes.
So this is a question for both of you, and this is one that was submitted to me. Would you support a cell phone ban in all Newbury schools, Patrick?
Yeah, it's a great question for the school committee, and I'm not saying that just to dodge the question, but honestly, that's exactly where that question goes. And like I said, my wife was on the school committee, so she knows those are the kind of issues. Personally, and it wouldn't be something the select board decides, but personally, yeah, I think that's exactly where we should be going. We've had enough years now to understand the challenges that students face when they have their cell phones in the classroom. And we were those parents that said, no cell phone until you finish sixth grade. And I know because my wife is at Newberry Elementary now, that's not the case now. So give the parents the opportunity to say, hey, it's not my decision, it's the school's decision. You're not taking that cell phone into school. I think that would be better for all of us. Again, not a decision that the select board would make, but a decision that the school committee would.
Dana, any thoughts on that question?
I think that I would support a cell phone ban, and I also believe it will be the school committee that would make that happen. I think the data has shown across the country that when cell phones are taken out of the classroom, that the academic levels go up. And so I think that's a good idea.
Of course, you're asking that question in the Council on Aging. I think if it was, the Triton High School, I don't think we'd get the same answer, right? So.
Well, that was an easy one. So, it seems as if Town Administrator Tracy Blaze gets plenty of criticism from some in town. Do you agree with that? Is she doing a good job? Dana?
Yeah, I think she's doing a great job. I think that, as I said in my opening statement, what I try and bring deliberation and debate to the table. And I think that what I try and do, my purpose, is to try and represent the entire town, in all of the citizens, whether they agree with what's going on or what isn't. But overall, I think that Tracy has done a good job.
Patrick?
Yeah, I think Tracy and Alicia Greco and Erica Jacobson have all done a fantastic job over these last few years. And we've lived in town long enough to remember when our town finances were not in great shape. And I think they are now, and I think that's to Tracy's credit and to Erica's credit and to Alicia's credit and the other members of the select board over the years. And honestly, it's one of the reasons I'm running now and I'd like to be on the select board now is because, no offense to Tracy who's in the back of the room, but I know she's not staying around for forever, and that's true for Erica and Alicia as well, and Jeff Walker. And whenever anyone says that government should be run like a business, it makes me bristle because I've been in both government and I've been, in the commercial sector, as a private sector as I am now. But succession planning actually is a thing, and it would be great if I could serve for a few years on the select board alongside Tracy, alongside Alicia, working with Erica, working with Jeff, working with Bill DeMayo, getting to know how they do their jobs well, so that when they are not there, I'm able to continue doing that job well.
Well, do you think I'm wrong? Is there criticism about her job and about how government's working in town? Am I off base by saying that? Either of you?
No, I don't think you're wrong at all. I think that there certainly are, I call them voting blocks. There's voting blocks in town that are for what we do and what she does, and there's voting blocks in town that don't agree with it. And it's kind of interesting. What I try and avoid is disagreeing just to disagree. I don't think that that's a healthy atmosphere for any of us to be in. And I just try and, like I said, bring everybody's voice to the table.
Right. Any thoughts?
I mean, we all know there are sites out there that are critical of her and others in this town. I mean, it's just, it's the difference between, to Dana's point, being critical without a solution and being critical without really saying what you would do differently. So I'm more than willing to talk to anybody anytime about anything, and if there's criticisms of Tracy that come with a solution or a specific way that she should do her job differently, I'm happy to listen. But just the blanket, Alicia and Erica and Tracy aren't doing their job, that just carries no weight with me, honestly.
Right. I asked this question last year, and I'm just still, I think it's relevant in terms of voting blocks. I mean, there are a lot of folks who think local politics in Newbury is toxic, and it's just getting people to run and getting people to participate. They're just like, I don't want to deal with that. I mean, how do you overcome that on the select board? Like, how would you try to say, hey, it's a safe place, or maybe not a safe place, but hey, we can get things done and it's not as toxic as some, I mean, either of you want to chime in on that?
Yeah, sure. I think a big part of it is showing up with the idea that the people who are there, who have volunteered their time when it's something like the finance committee, or have been elected in the case of the school committee or the select board, there's just good faith. They're coming at it from good faith. They're coming at it trying to do the right thing. And if you're looking at them and assuming the worst out of them, then you're gonna see the worst, and you're contributing to the toxicity that you mentioned. But personally, I'm gonna come at this job as a member of the select board, as somebody who's gonna look at everybody in good faith and extend the grace to say, you're here because you wanna be here and you've got something constructive to say. And again, I'll talk to anybody, anytime, anywhere about anything, and I'm gonna be as open as possible. I also think there needs to be, and again, I'm saying this on the Council on Aging Forum, but there needs to be a push to broaden the appeal of being on the select board, being on the recreation committee, being on the planning board, being on the finance committee to the people whose kids are in the school now, the people who are going to be sitting in these seats in 10 years and in 15 and 20 years.
Well, Dana, you've been on the board for a while. I mean, aren't you sick of this job? I mean, why are you still doing this? Why do you want to run again?
I love this job. First, I think that, you know, part of what Patrick was talking about is the challenges of standing up in front of the entire town or a group of, even a small group of people and trying to express yourself. That is definitely a challenge. It's definitely a challenge in this town. It's not easy to do. I mean, you really have to have a backbone to stand up for what you believe in and try and get your points across. And you know, but that's what deliberation's all about. You know, I would love to see more issues put on our agendas where we may. I understand the policy here is you know, Alicia doesn't want to put stuff on the agendas that we're not going to vote on in that moment. But I think that, you know, there's some great examples out there, you know, the flag policy and some of those other issues. You know, I have requested those to be put on agenda so that we can sit here as a board and discuss them and get the community involvement. That's important. And I think if we can do that, we can help break down those barriers that you're talking about.
Yeah. Well, you touched upon my next question. I'd like to hear, yeah, you can start with this. I'd like to hear your thoughts about the flag issue, about the rainbow flag issue at Byfield Community Arts Center. And specifically, did the town do the right thing by limiting what flags can fly outside municipal buildings and why?
I think they did. I was part of that policy.
Yes, I know that. That's why I asked.
Yeah. And I just want to say, even in the phone interview, I mentioned, you know, what kind of brought that into being. And I have here that, you know, the U.S. Supreme Court clarifies the difference between government speech and government-provided public forums. And which is another reason why I would really like to see this on an agenda, because we may be able to separate out the BCAC as a government-provided public forum versus government speech. And I think that if we could have some kind of policy along those lines, then the committee that's in charge of the BCAC, we could put that power in their hands and allow them to make the decisions what kind of flags they want to fly and which ones they don't. And I think that the public would certainly be on board with, if there's something that the masses aren't happy with, they're going to let it be known. That's what I feel about it.
Right. Well, I have a follow-up question for you. I mean, you just said government what was it, government?
It's government speech, which, for example, our policy is if there's a flagpole that's owned by the town of Newbury, that's government speech.
Right.
Okay, and then the other side of that is government-provided public forums. Right. And there's some towns and cities in Massachusetts that have a separate, it's on government property, but it's a separate flagpole for a provided public forum.
Right. Well, what I would ask you is, like, do you think the average citizen knows what that means?
No.
Right, and so,
Which is why,
as a board, did you explain that well to the residents, to explain exactly what that means in layman's terms so a 5-year-old could hear it? Do you think you could have done a better job explaining that to folks?
Well, we actually, with the exception of the evening when Dave Hill and the other residents came in, it was a well-packed house when that topic was brought up as a citizen's concern.
Right.
And it, in that forum, the policy is that we really can't debate it. We can't really talk about it because of the fact of the way that our policies are. So, absolutely, I would welcome to have it on an agenda or even have a public hearing on this topic.
Right, right. Patrick, what are your thoughts on this issue?
I don't disagree. I was here that night, when this place was packed for that. And I guess this is where, sort of being an analyst by profession, I think about the different scenarios. How could that have played out differently? How could the select board have handled the issue differently? And the worst case scenario would be somebody coming in and having a chat with Alicia and just, none of it happening out in public and nobody knowing exactly why we have a policy that wasn't followed. Instead, what happened was that the policy was followed and then there was a very well-attended select board meeting where the public had a chance to say what they really thought. And Alicia, to her credit, although she started the meeting by saying, this isn't on the agenda and we're not gonna respond as a select board, the select board did engage. And that was sort of to me, it was the right way to handle that situation as a whole. Now, as Dana's pointed out, the next part of it is figuring out a policy that makes sense going forward. And, unfortunately, we're in a very litigious environment and in a very litigious state. So we have to just deal with that. But I think the way it was handled by Alicia and by the select board in terms of that particular meeting and the policy itself was all transparent, it was all above board, and I'm all for that.
What do you think about the policy itself, Patrick? Do you have a?
About whether or not the town should determine what gets flown on.
Correct.
Yeah, I'm not gonna disagree with Dana on this. I mean, it's, you've got it in writing right there. I have to think there have to be towns outside of Massachusetts that don't follow that Supreme Court ruling as closely as perhaps we do, but
Well, Newburyport doesn't. They fly a transgender flag, and they were celebrated for that. And so someone think of Newbury as being kind of like just behind the times. Do you agree with that at all?
So let's find a way to fix that. Let's find a way to have a policy that is clear, that everyone can understand, to your point, so that, no one here is 5 years old, but if any 5-year-olds showed up, would understand it, yeah, let's have a clear, clean policy and then let's enforce it. I have no problem with that.
Any thoughts, Dana?
I totally agree. I absolutely, we need to discuss it, we need to adopt a policy, and yeah, I totally agree.
We're making your job harder, aren't we?
That's all right.
Disagreeing with each other.
If you guys agree the whole time, it's, what can I do? All right, I'm gonna ask one more, then you guys can ask each other some
Sure.
questions. What are your overall thoughts about the demise of the Pink House? And do you think local officials did all they could? Are you sad to see it go, Dana?
I'm sad to, yes, I am, in general, but that was a tough one. It's a consensus issue. It really wasn't a consensus issue because the National Park Service, they're the ones that owned it. They're the ones that controlled what was gonna happen there. I applaud the public for everything and all the efforts that went in to try and save the Pink House. It certainly was an icon. And I know that, I worked at the Plum Island Airport as a kid for 14 years. It's like I mowed the entire airport forever. That thing was right there front and center my entire time, so. Do I miss it? Yeah.
And do you think that local officials did all they could? I mean, I'm not sure what else they could have done, but do you have any thoughts about that?
I do. I don't know. That's a tough question. I mean, we wrote a letter to the state. We attempted to try and put in our 2 cents worth on what we felt about it, and it didn't gain any ground.
Patrick, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, it is weird to drive out there now, not see the Pink House. I didn't work at Plum Island Airport as a kid, so I didn't see it growing up. That said, your question is about whether or not local officials did everything they could, and I don't think the measurement of that is the Pink House still standing? I think the measurement is, does everyone in town believe that a good faith effort was made by the select board and by everybody else in this town? And to Dana's point, the public was certainly active. And at some point you just have to say, you know, that this was the unfortunate outcome, and unfortunately then move on and drive past it and sort of pay your respects as you drive by, I guess.
Right,
I think the land swap was almost impossible to achieve.
right.
I really think that, you know, and I don't know how to fix that.
Are you mad at the federal government right now?
No,
You're not mad? Okay. I mean, there are a lot of folks who are mad at the federal government right now about.
about the pink house.
Yes.
Yeah, well, there's a lot of people mad about the federal government, period, right? But the pink house is one of them, and, you know, again, I think, you know, Matt,
Well, frustrated,
he-
flummoxed, however you wanna put it.
he did a great job, I think, in trying to represent his side and the government side of the story. And I think he did all he could
Right.
for us.
Right.
That's all I can say.
Patrick, do you have any thoughts about, are you flummoxed, upset, bothered, mad, vexed by the federal government?
As a former Fed, I guess I have to say no, but but you know, to your point, Dana, worst case scenario would have been a nor'easter that took it out, and then all of that asbestos and all that other everything else that was in that building would be floating in the marsh, and we don't want that. So again, it was not the outcome anybody wanted, but it was the outcome we got, and again, I think you're right, Dana. I mean, public officials did everything they could, and they can't be judged on that final outcome, but on what they tried.
So Patrick, here's your chance to ask your opponent a question if you have one.
Yeah, so we're halfway through the process for the override. It passed overwhelmingly at town meeting. We have the election next Tuesday. There are three true outcomes. This is gonna get into the intricacies of the Triton budget and education, how it's funded and all that. But there are basically three true outcomes. All the towns approve the budget and it sails through and education is funded. Two towns say no, and then the school is forced to go back and figure out where they're gonna make cuts. Or two towns say yes, and the town that said no has to figure out where they're going to make cuts. On the select board, you voted against recommending the override. That's a $400,000 risk. Because in that last scenario, if Salisbury and Rowley vote yes for education for their override in the case of Rowley, then it comes back to Newbury and we have to find $400,000 worth of services within town to cut in order to make that, to pay our bill. So I'm just curious, do you know, because you're willing to take that risk, do you know what those $400,000 in services are that you would cut?
No. However, that's a good question. And this was my feelings on the Triton budget and the override. I 100% want to support the Triton budget. I told Brian Forgent, I certainly would not want to throw that budget back at them and have them try and fine tune it a little more. You know, we have held, all three towns have held Triton's feet to the fire now for a decade or more. I'm trying to make the cuts there. All right, my point is that I think the town of Newbury needs to also try and I want to maintain level services. I think that public safety is number one. I think that education is number two. And I think that level services should be number three. But I also would like to hold our own town's feet to the fire on how we can possibly, you know, fine tune our budget a little bit. What's interesting is if you look at what we've allocated towards our budget versus what has actually been spent over the last 4 or 5 years, the allocations have been substantially higher than what we have spent. Thank you. And I don't want to jeopardize the Triton budget. And in doing so, I'm concerned about whether the override is gonna pass or not. That's my answer.
Your turn, do you wanna ask your opponent a question, Dana?
Yeah, and actually, it's on the same topic. So if the override fails, which I hope it doesn't, what, do we have a backup plan to support the Triton budget? Can we?
Yeah, there's two ways we could do it. One would be to have a second town meeting in the fall, specifically for the override. That was done once before at least. So that's sort of the first least painful path that would go forward. And the second way would be to go into the town budget and find the $400,000 that we need to cut in services. And that's a large chunk of money that I'm not entirely sure that we're prepared as a town to do. And to your point about, level services go up every year. That's the
They do.
definition of level services. And this is an opportunity right now and I'm so glad it passed overwhelmingly at the town meeting, because we're looking at $134 for the average household for the year to have the override pass, or that would be the cost to the average person. And in contrast, it's $400,000 worth of town services that would have to be cut, and that's, I don't wanna go down that road, I don't think anybody wants to go down that road. So the initial backup plan would be another town meeting. We all just went to one last week, but we'd have to have one in the fall. Otherwise, yeah, we're looking at $400,000 in cuts, and that's why I voted as a finance committee member to recommend the override, and that's why I'll be voting for it next week.
All right. All right, this is kind of a toughie, but should the town continue to send a dedicated school resource officer to Triton? Dana?
Yes, short answer to that is yes.
Okay.
And I wanna, the way to do that is we need to revise the program, maybe have a little more oversight with it, and we need to rebuild, and I know, Patty has done a marvelous job at the police department, and I think that we have got the capability of rebuilding the public trust, because I think that the public, I think the trust is gone now, to be quite honest with you. And I think that we have the ability, through revising the entire program, to send a resource officer back there, and I think it's an important thing to do.
Okay. Patrick?
I mean, we're not the only town that's ever had this happen, and we're not the only town that's ever had a resource officer. So I think the best thing we could do, to Dana's point, is yes, but also reach out to the communities around us and find out what are they doing, what are the best practices that are working with respect to resource officers. I know from having read it in your paper that other towns rotate the individuals that are assigned as a resource officer a lot more frequently than we did here. And so, yes, provided that we also figure out what works best for our town and learn from other towns. There's no harm in learning from everybody else that's done this well.
Would you agree with Dana that the public trust in this program is gone at this point? What's your sense on that?
I don't know, and I would love to, my kids our youngest is a junior at UMass now, so she's been out of Triton for a few years. I would wanna talk to personally, I just would wanna talk to the kids themselves, like the kids that are actually in there, and the teachers that are in the school every day. I mean, I honestly don't know in terms of what the public thinks on that.
Well, going back to the federal government a little bit, I'm curious if you believe national politics has a place in local politics. Like, for example, do you think it was appropriate for the Newburyport City Councilors to introduce a resolution condemning the Trump administration's recently deported immigration actions? Do you agree that, you know what I'm talking about? The Newburyport selectmen put a resolution out condemning what's been going on in terms of immigration and deportation practices. Do you agree with that? Do you think there's a place for that in local politics?
My short answer is no, I don't, and I've tried really hard to, there's no room in my mind for national politics to be involved with our decision-making processes here in Newbury. It's like I really wanna have a bipartisan, and I don't even like saying that, because I don't think there's any room for it, and I think it starts smearing the picture. If you wanna go go down that road and try and, we're a small town, I don't want to have to endorse or not endorse anybody's political opinion. I mean, I've said that before. It's like, that's not our job. It's not my job to look at any of our citizens and try and tell them what they're supposed to think, or tell them how they're supposed to vote. I don't wanna get involved with that.
Patrick, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I served for 13 years as a diplomat, and I was essentially not allowed to have a public opinion about partisan politics. You appreciate that, you were in the Air Force.
Absolutely.
And actually, I kind of liked it, because it was always easier to just say, you know, my role is to support the US government and US government's policies. And so, honestly, a lot of my friends, when I got out of the Foreign Service, had no idea what my personal partisan politics were. And honestly, and no one should on the select board either. It shouldn't make a difference at all. There are no issues in this town. There are no issues in Newbury that are at the national level. We have some really big issues. We have a Triton School rebuild that's coming. We have Whittier is still kind of a wild case out there. We have this town hall in the lease here. We have enough issues. We don't need the national politics as well. We just don't need it.
Right, I mean, do you think that though, that's from a different age though? Do you think with social media and the way the internet works and, I mean, is it almost impossible to live in a bubble, so to speak? I mean, do you?
I don't think of it as living in a bubble. The issues that come before the select board, the issues that come before the finance committee or the planning board are very specific issues, specific to the town. They're on the agenda, it's pretty clear what they are. National political issues aren't on the agenda, and they don't come to the town. Now, if you, as a select board member or a finance committee member, want to bring your own social media into it, that's all on you, but I personally think that it just should be, the select board is for the select board of Newbury, not for anything greater or bigger than that.
Dana, any closing thoughts on that?
I just want to say, you know, kind of like Patrick, I served in the military for 26 and a half years. My commander-in-chief was my commander-in-chief. Didn't matter who they were or what they believed in, you know, that's just the way it was. And I just want to say that, you know, that on the military side, when I was serving, it was one of the most diversified group of people that I have ever worked with.
Yeah.
And, you know, it's like we each had our backs. Didn't matter who you were, what you thought, what your policies were, you know, that doesn't matter. So I kind of think that I've kind of carried that over into my civilian life, and I still feel the same way.
Right. Dana, will there be a new town hall in 5 years?
Well, that's a really good question. And, you know, built, completed, ready to go in 5 years?
I didn't settle for shovels in the ground.
We obviously, our municipal building issues, and Patrick knows them well, is what we need to do. I have talked to Tracy about this, and she has talked to me about it also, is we need to, as a town, come up with a consensus on what we're gonna prioritize from municipal buildings that we need, and what order we're gonna do them in. I really don't see dual projects going on at the same time, because I don't think we can afford that. Just about everything that we wanna do is probably gonna take a debt exclusion, you know, and like I said, we need to build consensus, we need to discuss it at the community level, on what the community would like to see. Because we talked about the voting blocks earlier. The only way we're gonna make each and every one of those buildings that we need possible is by building consensus throughout the town.
Patrick, same question.
Yeah, three thoughts on this. One, it was about 9 years ago that we had a vote on a municipal building that was gonna be town hall, fire station, police station, I think all rolled into one. Had that, and I think it passed by a majority at town meeting, but it needed 2/3, if I remember right. If that had passed, we'd have the building and we'd be halfway through paying off that debt. So, 5 years is a long time. I'd really like to see us, in a lot better position in 5 years. That's the first thing. Second, the funding, the capital planning fund, funds for the town hall and capital building planning. That gets voted in a town meeting and it gets voted, the money gets voted in a town meeting, it gets voted out at town meeting. So there's nothing the select board can do in terms, the select board can't just spend the money. The finance committee can't spend the money, Tracy Blaze can't just spend the money. It gets voted in a town meeting, gets voted out. So there's going to be an opportunity for the town as a town to decide how we're gonna spend that money. And it may be on a town hall, it could be on a new Triton rebuild, it could be, but it's going to be decided at the town hall. And then the last thing, I think we're one of the only towns in Massachusetts, if not the only one, that's paying a lease on a town hall, and it's crazy. And so the sooner we can solve that problem and get beyond where we are now, and we have the advantage of looking back and saying, what if we had done the right thing 9 years ago? That's what we'd be.
So why do you think it didn't work out last time, Patrick?
That's a loaded question. I honestly, I'm not sure. It was so, however many years, in 2016, I think it was, or 2015. Yeah, maybe the dynamics in the town were different than they are now. I think we've got, we saw it at town meeting. The override was passed by a huge margin. I wrote the numbers down, I don't remember what it was, but it was overwhelming. So I think when we go to a town meeting in the future and have a town hall or another large project like that on the table, I think the vote will again be overwhelmingly in favor. I don't want to go back to 9 years ago and try and figure out what went wrong.
Any thoughts on that?
I agree. Looking backwards isn't gonna get us anywhere. And Patrick talked a little bit about the 2/3 majority, which is really, in my mind, the big difference between a debt exclusion versus an override. When you have to get that 2/3 majority for that debt exclusion, it becomes a very difficult thing to do, which is why we need to work on the consensus, and we need to all get on the same team to make these things happen. And, I talked earlier about voting blocks. If you look at the different voting blocks in town, and you gotta get a 2/3 majority, I think no matter which way you're looking at it, it's not gonna be an easy thing to do. I have discussed, marketing. Get some professional marketers in here to help us out, to help us. I hate using the term sell a project, but that's kind of what you have to do. You have to have a professional marketing folks come in, help us to help the public figure out what we need.
Do you have any more questions for each other? Or did you? Nope. All right. Here's a softball, but what's the biggest issue facing Newbury right now, Patrick?
Oh, the biggest issue facing us right now is, it's all interrelated, but it's housing. Well, all right, so I'm gonna give you multiple answers, but.
Okay. You're a politician?
Not yet, I've not been elected yet. This is the first time I've ever run for office, so until May 13th, I am not officially a politician. Yeah, the biggest thing is our schools and the property taxes that support those schools, and having enough housing in this town, and the demographics of this town changing, the demographics of the school changing. All of this is all interrelated, and I think the challenge we're facing now, the reason we're sitting at the table, and we're running against each other, is because getting to, Dale, you mentioned consensus a few times, Dana, sorry, you mentioned consensus a few times. Getting to consensus and having solutions before the select board votes is a way for the entire town to see where the town is going, how the town is supporting education, how the town is supporting an override or a new building or whatever it might be. And that is, it's a long-winded answer to the hardest questions that are in front of us are gonna be around supporting, consistently and prudently supporting education, and doing so in a way that the select board is leading. The select board has reached consensus. The select board has done the really hard work of getting everybody to agree before there's a vote. I think that's what we're facing right now. Oh, wow.
Perfect.
How about that?
I'm really looking forward to Triton's, there's a building committee that's being formed specifically for the Triton rebuild. And I'm really happy about the news, about what the state is gonna provide to help us, do whatever we're gonna do at Triton. And I think the big decision that is gonna come in the near future is gonna be, are we gonna have to do a complete tear down and a rebuild, or are we gonna retrofit what we already have?
Right.
And if we decide that we're gonna do a complete tear down and a rebuild, I think at that point, we really need to look outside the box, because we have to provide, our kids are our kids, and we need to support the kids, and we have to provide them a safe comfortable, nice place to go in and learn. Because if you don't have that, you're not gonna, you can't do that. The cell phone issue was a piece of that. And I think that, possibly even moving the campus to another town or another spot, so that if we decide that we're gonna do a complete rebuild, I think trying to do like what Pentucket did, I think trying to do that on the same property because of the EPA constraints and the marsh and the Parker River and all that is gonna be a very difficult thing to do. And we're looking for sites all the time for things that we wanna put things. That might be a good spot.
I will say real quickly,
Yeah.
I've been to a lot of the stadiums and football fields and baseball fields and all that, and that view from Triton Stadium is gorgeous.
It's stunning.
I would hate to move the school from there just because we'd lose that.
So Dana, how do you feel about how it went down with Whittier Tech? What happened last time, and what do you think is gonna happen next? I mean, what do you hope happens next, and how do you?
Well, the contract itself is, I think, when that contract was created, I don't know what they were thinking. I just want to say that. And the 11 cities and towns, I mean, when you think about it, right now, Haverhill has kind of got a grasp on all of us, and they're kind of the driving force here. I love Maura Healey's support for regional type schools and stuff, and especially VOTEC. I think that VOTEC is extremely important for our kids. I know that, when my kids were going to Triton and they were graduating, there was a really strong emphasis on whether you're gonna go to college or not. And there's a lot of professions and there's a lot of things that people can do where they can easily, if they've got the skills and the talent, they can easily get into a six-figure job now without an issue, and not having to go to college, and not having to, put the money up front to pay for that additional education, which is getting more and more expensive all the time. So I think that what they have done with the possible campus sharing is a great option.
Patrick, your thoughts?
Yeah,
Question?
to me, there are two important tracks that are happening right now, probably 2.5, I guess. One is the question is Whittier gonna be rebuilt, or is it gonna be retrofitted, is it gonna be refurbished? And that's a decision that honestly, this select board should be informed about, but I don't think, we're not on the ground making those assessments. The other decision is around the 1967, I think it is, agreement.
Right.
For how Whittier is funded. And that's an area where this select board should be involved, and we should be active. Maybe if not sitting at the table, at least making sure that the position of Newbury is well represented in those discussions. Out of those two, I have no idea which one of them is gonna move faster and which one is gonna resolve the problem. And then the half track that I said is that influence at the state level, and getting the state more involved. And that's actually true for Triton as well. It was a point that was made at the annual town meeting, and then it's been made at select board meetings before, the importance of getting the Commonwealth at the state level involved in education funding for Newbury, for Triton is just critically important, and that's tied to Whittier as well.
I know you guys don't have crystal balls, but where do you see Newbury in 2050? Like, where do you see the town? Do you think it's in good shape? Was it well positioned for the future to hit that kind of 2050? Do you see new town hall? Do you see council on aging? What do you see in 2050?
Yeah, this is, we're in a phenomenal town, in a phenomenal place. We're close to Newburyport, but we don't have to be Newburyport. We've got, I think it's something like 47% of the town is unbuildable, which is terrible from the thinking about property taxes. But it's great when you think about how beautiful it is to live in this town, and people are gonna wanna continue to live in this town. And if we continue down the track we've been on for the last few years, again, back to the very beginning with Tracy and Alicia and Erica, I think if we continue on the track that they've laid down, I think in 50 years, it's gonna continue to be a fantastic place to live. fantastic place to raise kids. We moved here in part because of Newberry Elementary, and 50 years from now, I hope that's still true, that people are still moving here because of Newberry Elementary and because of how great this town is. I don't think it's gonna be a whole lot larger in terms of population, there just isn't the space, but who knows?
And what do you see?
I hope the Census Bureau is wrong, first of all, because, you know, what they're talking about is possibly our population shrinking to maybe 4,000 people. And in order to support, you know, I don't want that. I want us to grow. I think that in Newbury, I think we're on the right track with trying to encourage our kids to stay here, you know, trying to encourage other people that want to move here. And I think that, you know, commuting to work out of here is always going to be an issue. I mean, I did it for like 30 years. It's like I worked out of JFK, you know, but I lived here because of exactly what Patrick just said. First of all, I was born here, I went to school here, and I love this town. And, you know, I'm gonna do everything that I can to keep that promotion moving. And I think we're on the right track with some of the zoning and the housing things that have just been passed and the revenue. You know, we need to think outside the box for revenue sources. Infrastructure, maybe we're probably gonna have to improve infrastructure, which is gonna cost something, but if without the infrastructure, you can't have the advancement of the population and those things.
Right. This is a submitted question. How would you help protect Newbury's open spaces? Do select board members have that kind of power? Dana?
That's a really good question, and I think, you know, we have a couple of different pieces of property that have kind of been taken by public domain, that kind of stuff. And when that happens and it becomes available to developers, it's a very difficult position to stop that, to put a halt on it. You know, so at the same time, it's really gonna have to come from the community, I think, on how much are we willing to give up to development and how much do we wanna save to try and keep our town the way it looks as it does today. And those are difficult decisions. And personally, I don't think Newbury we're not in a position to buy blocks of private property. We don't have the money to do that in order to conserve it for open space.
Right.
So that's a tough one.
Right. Patrick, same question to you.
Yeah, one of the first people I met when we moved here was Jeff Walker, and I just have a ton of respect for the guy. And as I mentioned at the beginning, one of the reasons I want to serve on the select board is to be able to serve alongside him for a couple of years. He's been a huge advocate for the environment, for Newbury's open spaces, and I think he's been very successful in the last few years in his role on the select board on that particular issue. So ideally, I'll get elected and I'll get to spend a few years working alongside the guy. I don't think he's going to run again. I hope I'm not spilling any beans for Jeff ahead of time. But yeah, I think I agree with Dana on a lot of what he said, and I just think it's important that we continue a lot of the good work that Jeff's done.
Patrick, if you were asked to get into a dunk tank, do you do it?
You're assuming I've never done something more foolish than that, because
I think he means literally.
I literally have done things more foolish than that, so yeah, no problem with that at all.
I think you've done that. I've seen you do that.
I have done that.
Did you enjoy that? Was that fun?
It was a ton of fun.
I mean, does that build community in your sense, in your mind? Like,
Absolutely. I mean, whenever you get the opportunity to, I want to say, like, show the public, like, the real you, you know what I mean? It turns into fun, and it just, you know, it's important.
And it transcends politics too, doesn't it?
It's exactly.
Right.
Thank you. I couldn't have said it better myself.
I'm running out of questions. I think I just have one more, and then we can do a closing statement. I'm just curious what you guys think about the police station and how it turned out, the whole project, and has it been a win for the town? Patrick, do you want to start with that?
A win because it was the previous police station, the building was condemned. I mean, they were working out of trailers. It was embarrassing. So yes, it's a huge win. And it's, to Dana's point earlier, safety is a top priority. With the two reasons people move somewhere and stay somewhere is safety and schools. And so, having that police station the way it was before was a detriment to this town, and we're in a lot better shape now. And I think we still have issues. We haven't talked about this. I know we still have issues with the fire stations. I know at an annual town meeting, we moved some money to help out the one on Morgan Avenue. I know there's a lease issue with the Byfield. I think Byfield needs fire protection. There's no question about that. So we need to resolve those issues. The select board needs to work together and find a way that we're gonna come to a solution on that. It's critical. Safety is huge, and so I'm just sort of taking your question about the police station and expanding it a bit.
That's fine.
I think it's
That's totally
really, I think it's a win, and I think we have a lot of work left to do when it comes to fire, when it comes to safety. And again, that's part of why, the select board, working together, finding solutions, coming to consensus before they vote is super important, because it tells the rest of the town that we're working towards solutions.
Danny, you can piggyback on what he said about the fire station too. So how do you feel about the win, about the police station, and what about the fire station?
I think the police station was definitely a win. When you look at the things that, things that a normal person doesn't typically think about, and I don't even know what they call it, but, the being able to drive around back and enter the police station with whoever you might have in your car, not only to be able to protect their privacy, but also to be able to protect the public's, safety at the same time. We didn't have things like that before. And things like that really, really are important. And I'm not so sure that we would have been able to adopt where we were into that kind of a facility. So I think it was definitely a requirement. I think that it shows that we do put public safety as the number one priority. I know that the neighborhood itself wasn't so happy about being all torn up, but sometimes life is all about choices.
And it proves that you can build something in Newbury too, right?
It proves that you can build something in Newbury. The other, the fire station on Morgan Avenue, I'm all for giving them a new one. I think we need a new one. I also think that short term, the money, people will argue that, well, then why'd you put in the new floor, and why are we doing, $1 million worth of upgrade
Keep going.
on this building when your plan is, do you want to replace it? Well, it's because the people there, our firefighters, also need to be safe, and they need to have a safe place to work. And when you look inside of that building and you look at what they've been dealing with for quite a few years, it's deplorable.
Yeah.
And we certainly need to make that better for them in the interim period of possibly building a whole new building.
Patrick, I gave you a little more time. Do you want another minute to talk about it?
I'm good.
You good?
Yeah.
All right. So that's it for my questions. I'm gonna leave you guys some closing statement time. So, Patrick, do you wanna go first?
Sure, yeah. Again, thank you, everybody, for being here. Cindy, thank you for arranging this. Dave, for putting it together and moderating. I want to be on the select board because I want to get stuff done. I want to help this town in the very challenging, the big challenges we have ahead. Whether Triton, the town hall, fire station, as Dana mentioned. And I think getting stuff done requires really hard work. You can't just, what you need to do is you need to show up and work towards a solution, work towards consensus. Be part of a team, lead. These are all things I've done my whole life. I've been in public service first as a career and then volunteering here in town for however many years we've lived here, since 2007. Math is hard. So I want to keep serving this town, and I'd like to do it on the select board. So we got a vote next week, next Tuesday. Hope you all get out and vote for me.
Dana, your turn.
I'm gonna continue doing what I'm doing, and I really do enjoy it. I know you may not think that, but I do enjoy what I'm doing. And I wanna thank Cindy, and I wanna thank the COA, and I wanna thank the Daily News for coming out here in providing this opportunity for us to talk to the public. You know, it's an important thing to do. And that's about all I got to say.
All right. I mean, that's about it here. I want to thank Cindy and the COA for co-hosting this forum, and you guys for showing up and making this a pretty enjoyable hour of thought-provoking, kind of, and some kind of good-natured ribbing and stuff like that as well. And so we'll make sure everyone goes to the polls on May 13th. It's really important that you guys go out and vote. Even just, it's direly important, and I guess that's about it. Thank you very much for coming, and happy Monday.